Welcome back to AWS On Air live here at the DC Summit. My name is Chad Lacey. I'm a global sales strategist with AWS, and I'm joined with my co-host, AM, the infamous AM.
Hey, I'm AM. I'm so excited to be here in DC. The truth is out there. I am the unofficial Washington, DC X-Files tour guide and solution architect here at AWS. We're joined with two guests. Please tell us who you are and why you're here.
So, hi there, my name is Venki Krishnan. I'm one of the BDs for our communication developer services. Here to talk to you a little bit about what they are. Hopefully you guys can take a little bit away from that and deep dive as we go on down the stage.
Yep, my name is Dave Lemons. I'm a specialist solutions architect. Really all that means is my particular focus is on Amazon Pinpoint, Amazon SES, and I'll also be talking about Chime SDK as well.
So as I understand it, guys, you are here to talk about communication developer services, correct?
Yep.
So what AWS services are included in the communication developer services
Yes.
suite?
So communication developer services is what we call as a umbrella term for three major services that we have in the AWS stack. One is obviously the Chime SDK that helps you build integrations into your applications for video communications. Along with that, we have another major service that's been one of the oldest services in the AWS services table, which is Simple Email Service. It's really focused on high volume transactional and email workloads that customers use. And finally, we have Amazon Pinpoint, which is a multi-channel orchestration service that leverages services like SES and SNS to actually do multi-channel communications across email, SMS, mobile applications, push in-app notifications, and so on. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Looking forward to diving deep on it.
Awesome. So how do these services work together?
So one of the big things about when you look at customers that are actually trying to engage citizens or constituents on various platforms, and in public sector, we have various types of institutions that actually are trying to engage, being ISVs like EdTechs and GovTechs. We have federal customers as well as state and local government customers, and also nonprofits. A lot of them are looking for ways to communicate across multiple channels because as we have seen from the emergence of COVID, communications are predominantly actually being catered to in a digital medium, and as they do that, customers are moving from one channel to another channel for various types of communication. So you might get notifications on text, you might get notarized communications via email, you might get push notifications from apps for COVID or healthcare, or it might be citizen communications. And in each of these scenarios, you'll find that integrated communications where you're taking customers through journeys of content becomes very relevant, and those are where we see a lot of those use cases.
Hey, you're kind of scratching the surface there on the question that I wanted to ask around, specifically we're in DC, talking to a lot of public sector people. What are public sector people taking advantage of in this suite, in Pinpoint, in the Chime SDK and SES? I think too, maybe you could highlight for us, why would I use something like one of these services? And I think one of the obvious things that we could maybe talk about here is managing email infrastructure is actually really complex and not easy. So can you talk to maybe the use cases in public sector, and then what does using something like SES afford me?
Yeah, so one of the big things that we see is, like for example, when you look at these services are managed services. They actually serve to take advantage of undifferentiated heavy lifting that organizations tend to do, right? Meaning email, SES for example, it's very undifferentiated. You don't have to sign up for reputations with your ISP. You don't have to manage your capability about actually integrating with downstream providers and ISPs. All this is actually done for you with SES. And you can just build them into your application stack using APIs and actually will go. And that's something David can definitely actually show you guys as we go down through the process. Cool. The other aspect of it is that when you look at multi-channel communications, when you're taking customers down from one customer journey to another customer journey, another channel, you have the ability to actually capture all these metrics and keep it in one place, which then tells you which is the most effective way to actually manage these communications, and which content is actually resonating with each and every constituent body. So we have organizations like California DMV that are actually leveraging Pinpoint along with other services for communications. We have organizations like academia.edu that has a huge, massive community of researchers that actually get email communications on their publications and interests. We have organizations like City of Port St. Lucie that's using video communications for connecting with the citizens. So all these are actually great ways to actually leverage these services.
Awesome. Well, I know a lot of our customers are always interested in, but especially our public sector and government customers tend to ask these questions. What certifications do these services have, and why do they make it such a good fit for governments?
So when you look at governments, most of the time when we look at government customers, the certifications are primarily tied to various compliance needs to satisfy specific organizational needs around personal information, the ability to actually make sure that these are in compliance with the other infrastructures that they are actually using. So for example, Pinpoint, SES, and Chime are all FedRAMP 2 moderate as well as FedRAMP high certified, which means that if you have very specific workloads, they can actually even be incorporated as part of GovCloud in the GovCloud region. And that makes it very easy for customers to not have to go through exceptions for compliance needs where these services can already exist there.
Now Dave, I heard demo, and then Dave can show us some of this
Venki
stuff.
does all the great talking. I'm here to actually show you how it's actually going to work. So
I'm interested in that.
So we'll walk through Pinpoint. We'll take a chance and we'll walk through SES, and then we'll actually show the Chime SDK in a pretty cool use case that actually starts to bring Pinpoint and the Chime SDK all together.
Fantastic.
So hopefully we see the Pinpoint console. Pinpoint really has three major things. We have the ability to do segments. So segments are actually how we go to create audiences. So let me target who I actually want to send communications to. And there's a couple ways to create segments. So this is basically how I'm pulling data into Pinpoint. And its easiest level, if I wanted to do nothing but upload a CSV or a JSON file and start sending SMS messages, I could do that. And that's we saw that as the rise of COVID, we saw a lot of state organizations just I need to send a text as quickly as possible. So
yeah.
this is how they onboarded and started doing that. So once we get data into Pinpoint, we can actually start to create dynamic segments. So Pinpoint has something called attributes. And these are things that we associate with the endpoints and users within Pinpoint. And attributes are really used for two things. They're used for segmentation, so think of things like what state you live in, your zip code, what your account type is, whether or not you bought a pair of shoes in the past 30 days. So
I saw one segment that I felt immediately drawn
pizza
to.
lovers or cake lovers?
I felt seen by it.
Right.
I felt a part immediately. It was pizza lovers.
Pizza lovers, that was the one I saw.
Yeah,
It was
so
pizza lovers.
This demo was just made for you.
I felt incorporated. Thank you.
yeah, so I've got a fictitious restaurant, so my attributes are things like favorite food, as you noticed. So if you look at the bottom, I've got roughly 30,000 endpoints. So if I wanted to create a communication, and again start targeting all of those who have a favorite food of cake. As I add these attributes and add these filters, you'll see those counts start to drop. So I'm really starting to narrow in on my audience. And I can continue to do those. So I can add, I have something called customer lifetime value. This is actually being populated with the SageMaker machine learning model. So it's determining, my high value customers from not high value. So in addition to liking cake, I can also target my high value customers that also enjoy some cake.
That one doesn't make me feel so good because it might expose how much money I spend on cake. For that data is embarrassing.
You're calling yourself out as a high-value cake lover?
So now that I've identified
It's
my
out there
audience, I can start to use a campaign to actually send those communications. So So I'll just start with the demo campaign. Here's where we see the standard channels that Pinpoint supports. So we can do email, in-app messaging, SMS, push notifications, and then custom channels. Custom channels are really cool. They allow us to target channels that we may not already have built in. So if I can hit it with a Lambda function, I can wire it up as a custom channel. So think of things like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Slack. I can incorporate all of those into Pinpoint.
And that's one of the interesting things, right? So if you look at public sector, there's been a lot of need that came out of COVID to actually reach various constituent bodies, like folks for SNAP benefits. How do I let people know where to go for testing at various testing locations for vaccines? At the same time, when vaccines are being available across the ecosystem and across the countries, these are areas where we saw some of the biggest upticks. Not just from text messaging, but across the board. How do I communicate best with customers? And now, over the last few years, we have seen a lot of other organizations that have actually kind of also taken this on. Things like 311 notifications for what's available. As a ISV, I'm building just-in-time applications for people like K-12 or security notifications on campus. Another area was queuing notifications on campus. Hey, I don't need to let people come to a cafeteria and pick up food. I can actually bring that on. Where this becomes interesting is that now I can understand the trends of content that's being very relevant, and that content lets me guide my next set of conversations using AI and ML. So these services play very well with our rest of our ecosystem.
So for this campaign, you basically select who you want to send to. So I'm going to do a renewal eligible use case. So I'm going to identify everybody who's eligible for renewal. I'll choose my email template. So this is effectively what we're going to send. So here's where we start to see those attributes used for its other purpose, which is actually personalization. So in addition to segmentation, I can actually start to personalize the communications going out based off of data that I'm passing into Pinpoint. So in this case, I'm actually using their first name as a salutation. And then once you have your template defined, you can actually control when to send that. So I could send it immediately if I wanted just to go out as quickly as possible. Or if I had monthly newsletters to go out, I could schedule that to go out monthly. We also support an event-driven campaign. So think of things like actions that are happening on your website. So a new account signs up. You want to send them a communication. You have an abandoned cart situation. You want to send them a new communication. You can write events into Pinpoint's event stream. And as it sees those events, it'll actually send out communications.
Very cool. I actually had just two things happen to me recently that I think would be perfect for this. One, so I live in Texas. I got a notification, SMS message saying, please limit your electricity use right now, or the grid's going to go down, basically. So that was very useful because I went and turned off my washer and dryer. The other thing was I got my renewal for pre-check, right? It sent me an email letting me know my pre-check was going to expire soon, so I could do it online. Both of those, I think, are great use cases, especially public sector, right? That would have worked really well.
I mean, it's an awesome use case and a great segue. You know, Pinpoint also supports, it's one of the AWS service that supports two-way SMS. So we see a lot of that in
they asked me to reply.
In the utilities workspace, like, hey, we noticed your power's out. Is it back on yet or not? We see a lot of two-way SMS and survey follow-ups, checking in, on COVID. Are you doing okay? Do you need help? So a lot of cool things you can do with two-way SMS. And then finally in Pinpoint we have journeys. So these are really just multi-step customer engagements. And this is a sample journey I like walking through. Really all it's going to do is it's going to start with less expensive forms of communication. So let me start by sending a push notification because it's really inexpensive to send a push notification. And then I'm going to gradually ramp up until I get a response. So did I get a response after that? Let me wait a day, send them an email, which is a little bit more expensive, and then keep going up. I'll send an SMS message. And then finally, if I still don't get a response, here's where custom channels come into play, is that I could potentially have a custom channel that's making a call out to some print on demand as an API, so that an actual renewal letter is actually sent out and mailed through the postal service. A really expensive thing to do. I don't want to do that unless I've got customer interaction earlier on in that journey. So
That's cool.
so that's Pinpoint, briefly. Let's talk about SES. So simple email services. You can tell it's one of our older services because it has simple in front of it. But if you need to send email, you need to send it as fast as possible. SES is the service you would look to use. And there's two primary ways to interact with SES. So you can make an API call to send an email, or you can hook it up via SMTP. I actually just got a simple Lambda function. All it's doing is making an API call into SES. This is straight off of our documentation, so you can pretty much copy and paste this code and be sending emails with SES, right away. So we'll go ahead and start that. If I get, results back, I should have a success, and I do. Yay, I've appeased the demo gods. So that's pretty much SES. Again, with both Pinpoint and SES, you also get all kinds of cool engagement data coming back out. So think of things like opens and clicks, SMS sends, SMS failures. And those are really powerful when you start incorporating journeys. So I can see if I never got a response on an email, let me send across to other channels and actually take other actions.
Yeah, that was something I was going to ask. If they didn't open, could your journey then reprompt to send another email? If they opened and didn't respond,
sure.
You can set up different paths, right, to kind of escalate the communication.
Certainly.
The other area that you see is a lot of the preferred channel of communications at different times of the day.
Yeah.
Right, I'm not going to open my email when I'm driving, but hey, I have a better way of engaging with constituents at that point. And so.
That's super cool.
So go ahead.
I was just saying that's super cool.
So finally we'll talk about Chime SDK. So, you certainly heard about Amazon Chime. Chime SDK was built based off of all the lessons learned we made from building Chime. And it's really three primary pillars. So media services, so let me actually support, audio calling, video calling, phone integration, so you can actually, make out calls to public television phone networks or public phone networks. And then the messaging SDK or Chime Chat. So what I'll show, this is actually part of a demo that I helped with for reInvent. So this is actually a telehealth demo. So what you see on the left is actually just my SMS message, and then on the right is Chime SDK. And so what's happening is that on the left, I've just completed a telehealth visit, so we're actually going to send a survey. And the cool part about this is the first 3 questions in this survey are actually being done with Lex. So Lex is actually collecting all this. So it's going through a chatbot. It's going to collect, how do you rate this? Any recommendations we can do on the service? And then finally, hey, do you want us to follow up with you? So if they answer yes to that, it's actually going to connect them to their physician, over on the right. So you'll actually see their physician come in, start a Chime SDK chat, and so now that conversation is happening between the physician and the user via SMS. And the cool piece about that is pretty much everybody has a phone, everybody has SMS, so the barrier to entry for that form of communication is really easy. So again, what you see is this conversation continuing to happen between their physician, and the patient. So a lot of cool things you can do, with the combination of Pinpoint and the Chime SDK.
I was going to ask, Pinpoint custom actions, right?
Yep.
Yeah, custom
Include
channel.
Chime SDK.
That's exactly how this is working. So there's a custom channel. So, and you can take this a step further. So at the end of this, if they want to follow up information, they can certainly email that out from Pinpoint, or SES.
Or SES.
So,
yeah, and did I say you could also route this through a PSTN, so you could escalate this to a full-on phone call?
Sure, yeah.
Yes,
If something else happened, we can actually, initiate that through Chime. There's also some Connect integrations you can do as well. So if you wanted to initiate outbound calls from a call center, you can do all that as well. So
we've got 30 seconds left.
These are all foundational services that'll help you build out your communication strategy as you grow. So that's the beauty of this. Easy to wire up and use.
That's fantastic.
Thanks for having us here. It's been awesome.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. The demo was fantastic. We appreciate you showing off and just honestly how easy this was to get to roll out.
Cool.
And we appreciate you all joining in. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.